Prior to every major Tekken update, the dev team hosts a live stream called a Tekken Talk. They bring in the latest build, demonstrate a few of the changes, and share their philosophies of where they want to take Tekken 8. Now, we just had the Season 2 Tekken Talk, which will be the biggest major update to Tekken 8 since release. And the community did not like what they saw. The backlash has been so vocal and so widespread that executive producer and director Harada has responded on Twitter. He said, regarding the recent increase in discussions among players, I have personally initiated an urgent discussion and asked the team, the development team, to deliberate on how to respond. Now, I'll link this tweet if you want to see some of the replies and read the rest of it, but the team has responded. They've shared an overview of the version 2.0 battle system adjustments and their policies and some of the system changes. Now, this doesn't cover every single character individually. In fact, it doesn't really cover character-specific changes, but it shares some new things that we haven't heard since the Tekken Talk and directly addresses some of the community feedback. So this is pretty exciting. It means they're paying attention, they're listening, and they are making adjustments on the fly. This is a very hopeful trend for the game. Hopefully they continue to listen and make quick adjustments. What I want to do is go through these. Not going to read the whole thing. I have them summarized for you here in the notes below. And then we're going to look through some tweets from Nakatsu, the game director, who has released new footage showing the new sidestep capabilities coming to Tekken 8. Okay, let us begin. So, things that we heard in the last Tekken Talk. You can now full crouch from a heat engager. Philosophy is pretty straightforward. There are characters who have better offensive options from crouch, like Anna Williams, who will be coming out, and they want those characters to be able to access that offense after a heat engage. Now, nerfs to heat are really exciting. They're reducing chip damage across the board during the heat state, and if you heat dash and hit someone's block, the chip damage is reduced. They wanted to reduce those situations in tournament where you chip somebody down, you heat dash, bring them to 1 pixel, and they have to guess one more quick poke mix-up for the rest of their life, or to decide the round. They wanted to take those away, so that's exciting. Unfortunately, there's another buff to heat. Their hope is to make offense a bit more creative, and to do that, they're allowing certain characters to heat burst and heat smash from their unique stances. They didn't specify which characters, they didn't specify which stances. I think we'll have to test it out once we get the patch. But another nerf to heat coming. Power Crush heat engagers are removed mostly. And here we see the details on who gets to keep theirs. So they listed Jack 8, Kuma and Panda, and Leo. And their philosophy is that characters who can Power Crush heat engage from their stances will be keeping theirs. I don't know if this is every character. They say exceptions include characters like, so this is probably an incomplete list, but we can assume that a lot of characters with neutral heat engagers will probably lose them. So I'm thinking Victor, Nina, Shaheen, Lee, these characters that can just be in their standing stance, moving around, have access to most of their options, and then do a Power Crush heat engager. They're taking those away. Now, time for the movement improvements. So, sidestep to the foreground from crouch. If this is the first time you're hearing this, since Tekken 3, since sidestepping was introduced, if you're in crouch, you can't tap down to step to the foreground this way. The reason is because down is also how you crouch. So if you tap down, you would just hold your crouch. That was a scripting issue that they didn't know how to fix before. Nakatsu's team has fixed it for Tekken 8 Season 2. That's what he's going to demonstrate in these clips, and we'll go through those after we finish the patch notes. I'll timestamp it below if you want to jump there. Additionally, they're improving, or they're adding an input buffer at the start of rounds. Now, according to Harada, this used to exist. I don't know which Tekken they removed it, but this basically guarantees that as long as you're mashing your button at the start of the round, if you do a faster attack, you won't lose to your opponent's slower attack anymore because the input buffer will store it. Currently in Tekken 8 Season 1 and back in Tekken 7, you had to execute your input at the start of the round frame perfectly, which online is really hard to do. And online is kind of the main scene of the game now, so this is a good fix. Finally, input buffering of sidestepping. So after you block something or you're in hit stun, you'll be able to input your sidestep sooner and your sidewalks, right? This is what this input is showing, sidewalking. You'll be able to do it sooner, meaning you'll be able to reliably evade things from that hit stun and block stun. Okay, so those changes we have all heard before in the last Tekken Talk. Now are some new changes. So, hits on grounded opponents now inflict gray health. They've thrown the number 30% around before. I don't know the specifics for sure, but this is pretty big. Previously, if you take hits on the ground, it's all permanent damage. Now, this gives you the ability to stay on the ground, play different Okazemi situations instead of forcing yourself to get up because you don't want to take permanent health damage, and your opponent gets to continue their heat mix-ups, right, more aggressively. So this gives the defender a few more options, basically extends your health bar a little bit. I think it's probably a good change. They're changing the frame data on heat dash and heat activation. Now, according to what they said here, I don't think this is coming in version 2.0 right on release, but they will be complete by the time the Tekken World Tour starts on May 9th. So heat activation could mean heat engagers, heat bursts. It could mean both. We know what heat dash means, right? But I think this is a fantastic change. Right now, you're plus 17 on a heat engage. It's so oppressive that as a defender, you're pretty much going to stand block or crouch. But if they reduce that advantage, now the defender might be able to sidestep, might be able to mash, might be able to backdash. In general, it will create more counterplay, which will create more variety in how the attacker has to attack. So this is a change completely in the correct direction. By reducing one-sided advantage, both players having more options will make the game feel more creative, less stale, and in general more interesting to watch and play. This is a huge change I'm a fan of. Huge change. I hope we don't have to wait too long for it. And now another change I'm a gigantic fan of. 1+2 throw breaks with separate buttons have been made more lenient. So prior to Tekken 7 and Tekken Tag 2, most players broke 1+2 throws using the individual punch buttons separately. However, in Tekken 7, that input leniency got tightened. And in Tekken 8, it's literally like a 1 frame difference in how you hit those buttons will lead you to fail the throw break. It's gotten to the point that Korean pros who have been really, really good at breaking throws since way before Tekken 7 are unable to break throws using separate button inputs. You see Lohai miss 1+2 throw breaks. You see Knee miss 1+2 throw breaks. This should not be an issue based on how the game was before. They're doing the correct one, just not framed perfectly. So they're loosening that input leniency and making it a bit easier. So now you don't have to bind a 1+2 button to successfully break these throws. I think that's fantastic, and we've needed that for a while. Additional nerf to throws, increased recovery for whiffed normal throws. So a generic throw with 1+3 or 2+4 has 6 frames of slower recovery. So this means that if you duck or backdash throw, you have more chances now to whiff punish it. However, they are also buffing throws in a couple of weird ways. Well, it's going to be one weird way, right? Don't panic when you read this because it's going to be changed. When you break a throw, the attacker heals 1 gray health. This, to me, is so minor that it probably won't matter. I don't really like it, but realistically, I don't anticipate somebody healing that much health by doing a bunch of throws that get broken, right? And they list here a change that is actually removed. So we saw this in the Tekken talk. When a throw break is successfully performed, the player that was grabbed will receive 5 points of chip damage. And this is what it looked like in the Tekken talk. King throws Jin and he takes chip damage here. In heat specifically. However, due to community feedback, they have removed this. They felt it was weird to impose a disadvantage on the defender for executing a successful throw break, right? Because it's supposed to be a high skill mechanic. So they're removing that 5 chip damage change that was initially proposed. So this is a good thing. They heard us. They're making these changes. And it's possible that there are character changes that we don't know about that may be changed. So in general, this is really, really exciting stuff. One point of feedback I had is if they wanted to buff throws, right, because they want throws to be more successful, I think they could just restore the old throw break mechanics from pre-Tekken 7, where you have to break with 1 to break a generic throw, you have to break with 2 to break the other generic throw. There are already characters in the game with these generic throws, so you do have to learn it. King already has pure guess throws. If they wanted people to throw more, they could just restore that system. To me, the inconsistency between some characters having arm-specific throws and other characters not doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if you watch old Tekken footage, especially with the tighter throw break windows, they were 14 frames instead of 20 frames now, people were throwing a lot. And it was very dynamic. And yes, it's a bit of a skill check to be able to break throws, but some characters are putting that skill check on you anyways. Jin, Dragunov, Xiao Yu, Asuka, etc., right? So I think they should just put back the old throw system, honestly. Let's look at the new sidestep changes. So sidestepping to the foreground from crouch. Nakatsu has put out this gigantic tweet, and I will read this to you because I think it's important to have this context. In Season 2, I've spoken in the Tekken Talk Live and interview videos about the upcoming defensive improvements. However, I feel that I haven't fully conveyed the details and the significance of these changes. Season 2 introduces major system changes to sidestepping and movement mechanics. You can now sidestep toward the foreground while in a crouching state. You can complete the input for a sidewalk using input buffering. These are the two major changes. I would like to explain how these changes will affect matches using some video samples. Of course, I fully understand that the effectiveness of these adjustments may vary depending on factors like the character's size, their sidestep and sidewalk performance, and the axis situation when moves hit or are blocked. There may also be scenarios where a safer and simpler option than sidestepping is available. Please keep in mind that these videos are simply reference examples to demonstrate how the increased sidestep and sidewalk options will contribute to defensive improvements. The sample video and explanation can be found in the thread. So, example number 1. Nina does down back 3, which is +4 OC, opponent crouch. That means Jin is stuck in crouch here. Now, normally, you can sidewalk right the down forward 1-2 after, but because Jin is on the player 1 side, he can only step to the background this way. So, since he's going left, he cannot step the down forward 1-2. This is how Season 1 behaves. They're going to swap sides here. Nina's going to do the same sequence, down back 3, +4 opponent crouch, and Jin is going to be able to successfully sidewalk to the right. So there's the attempted sidewalk left. Now's this attempted sidewalk right, which succeeds. Season 2 aims to unify these behaviors. So now Jin can go to the right even though he's on crouch from the player 1 side, right? Seeing this again, he tries to go left, now he tries to go right, and he succeeds from crouch. That's an exciting new change for many people who will learn the defensive option and now be able to apply it from both sides. He switches back to the right side here to demonstrate that Nina's tracking has not changed. It will still track movement to the left, which is now to the foreground. However, you have access to the same defensive option from both sides. Example number 2. Lydia versus Steve. So this is going to be an offensive sidestep situation. So whereas Jin did a defensive sidestep there, Lydia is going to apply an offensive sidestep from her down back 2. So she does down back 2, which leaves her at -4, but in crouch. So if she wants to step Steve's down forward 1, she can go left. That's what we saw happen twice there. However, on the right side, she can only step to the background, which is sidestep right. Season 2 is going to unify this. She can sidestep to the left from the player 1 side. And Steve's tracking has not changed. Lydia's sidestep has not been buffed, but now because she can go left to the foreground, you will see that she dodges the down forward 1 when she steps the correct direction. Nakatsu demonstrates both the incorrect and correct sidestep to show that the properties are not changing. Example number 3, another defensive sidestep situation, this time with better reward. So, Xiaoyu does down back 2, which is +5 opponent crouch, but Jin can sidewalk left against the heat smash. However, you'll see that he swaps sides here. He loses access to sidewalk left to the foreground, right? Or if he goes to the background, it's sidestep right. If he goes to the foreground, it's left, which is correct, but not accessible. Now, the Season 2 change. Xiaoyu's tracking has not changed whatsoever. Jin can still do that on the player 1 side. And if he goes right, he'll get clipped. Now, showing it from the player 2 side, I believe he's going to go right and he's going to fail. Again, right towards the background. But towards the foreground, this new accessible sidestep, ooh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So again, the defenders and the attackers will have new options, but this next one was the most surprising to me because this is a very sweaty situation that I've never even considered. So Zafina is going to do down back 4-2. Kazuya will block the first hit and sidewalk the second to the left. Now this is available in Season 1. I've never seen this. I've never seen a high-level player go for that string and an equally high-level player attempt that sidestep pattern. However, Kazuya cannot do it because it tracks sidewalk to the right. So in Season 2, we're going to see the same thing because that's a background sidestep. And he'll get a punish. This is a really sweaty option. Again, I've never seen that. In general, strings have been realigning for so long that I haven't seen many people even try to step after blocking the first hit. And I never considered that this may be a consequence of this system, where you could block a low and now step the second hit of a string in the foreground. This is a totally brand new idea to me. And if this is a defensive pattern they're going for, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it could mean that you can now step more strings even after blocking the first hit. And if that's the case, the meta may shift away from string offense at the higher levels. We've talked about before that it feels like they're buffing strings and making that offense more real, and that's really beneficial to beginners who are going to be attacking more often with their full strings. But in old Tekken metas, strings were really weak. If this movement is viable for many strings throughout the cast, we may see like the meta shift away from this one-sided offense. Now, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because we did see gigantic homing moves going half screen in the Season 2 preview, but if they took our feedback about these sidesteps, if they took our feedback about the chip damage throws, maybe they'll also take feedback about these really oppressive moves in neutral. We saw Zafina back 1+2 in the Tekken talk, and this move was absolutely egregious in terms of how much coverage it had, right? Yes, it does chip damage to her, and it does chip damage to the opponent as well. But to me, it's more about how little counterplay there is to this move. You have to counter hit it, you have to power crush it, but any kind of sidestepping or even backdashing does not feel very viable with how much space this move's covered. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. They're talking for a bit, and then they demonstrate this move. Zafina's back 1+2. It's such a long range. It's such a long range move. It's a 19 frame move. So interrupting it does not feel very feasible when you're already spaced out like that, right? The ability to move around strings in defensive situations is nice. The ability to move out of crouch is nice. If they took our feedback on that, do you think they'll take our feedback on these really oppressive moves? I certainly hope so. June has, you know, a +6 homing mid. Maybe they'll take our feedback on that. Again, don't want to get too far ahead of myself. That's the +6 homing mid. But, you know, this is objectively a good thing. They took our feedback. They're going to undo the chip damage throws. They took our feedback. They're going to allow sidestepping from crouch, which has been a common sticking point for newer and intermediate players. This could be a good thing. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, everything will be linked below, so you can check it out yourself and read it in detail. And lastly, I just want to say I appreciate the people who have been positive and supportive. I think it's been a very frustrating time for a lot of Tekken players throughout the year. Regardless of your stance on Tekken 8, I think there have been a lot of things to be frustrated and upset about. And as much as I try to stay as positive as possible, it is a little difficult dealing with persistent negativity online. So I try my best to focus on the positivity, not because I want to brush the negativity under the rug, but it's just more fun and engaging for me to make content that we can be productive about. As you saw in my past videos, I did offer a lot of criticism on the new changes, and it excites me that these critiques are being addressed. So I'm hopeful that this line of communication stays open. I'm hopeful that we will see changes that make Tekken better, and I really appreciate the people who have been really supportive. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting me. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.